Hello everyone, this is Alpha Omega. Today, we're going to take a look at Lucid's earnings together and talk about them. Lucid's earnings haven't been able to go up. We've been waiting a long time for gravity, but even so, let's take a look at why the stock price still isn't rising. Alright, the information I'll be sharing today is based on the materials released on May 6, 2025. First, to highlight the main point, for 5 consecutive quarters, the number of vehicles we've delivered to customers has increased. So, to sum up, the number of vehicles delivered to customers this quarter was 3,109. Also, with the launch of the Gravity line, we received orders from customers in Canada and Saudi Arabia. However, the vehicles haven't been delivered yet, but in any case, they mentioned that they received orders from Canada and Saudi Arabia. Next, they said that the Gravity can use Tesla's supercharger network. Last February, they said they received a loan of about $240 million from Gulf International Bank in Saudi Arabia. And that loan they have to repay. What is it? There were company bonds coming due, and their maturity was in 2026. But the amount was about $1.0 billion, and they managed to pay it all off. How did they pay it back? Here, too, Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund lent them $1.1 billion. So after borrowing this money, they paid off all the company bonds that were due in 2026. So as a result, it would be good to note that the maturity of the company bonds that were supposed to be paid back by 2026 has now been extended to 2030. Also, they're mentioning that for 4 consecutive quarters, the Lucid Air has been selected as the most efficient electric vehicle in the United States. Now, let's talk a bit about Nikola. They've acquired Nikola's current production facilities and site. So it looks like they'll be doing manufacturing there and possibly using it as a warehouse as well. They said that from testing to development facilities, they'll be carrying out these activities at the Nikola site going forward. There's more information about this below. I'll talk about that as well. Next, it seems like they'll be able to use supercomputing at KUST, which is King Abdullah University. They formed a partnership. So, what are they going to do with this supercomputing? They'll run EV simulations, electric vehicle simulations. It looks like they'll also be testing next-generation autonomous technology, like self-driving systems. There was news like this as well. Just keep that in mind. Now, here I've pulled something from the conference call, and Nikola comes up in the discussion. As they acquired the Nikola factory, they said, we're going to commercialize the midsize model, and it looks like we might be able to move up mass production a bit sooner. But when is that supposed to happen? They're talking about the second half of 2026. So what is this midsize model? It's not the Lucid Air or the Lucid Gravity. It's a model that's positioned below those, and that's what they're calling the midsize. So they've managed to move up the commercialization of this model. And what about the capital expenditure we were expecting? They were able to minimize the facility investment costs at a very low cost. They also mentioned in the conference call that they've acquired some land for facility investment, so you might want to keep that in mind. In addition, it's worth noting that there were some highly specialized professionals with backgrounds in electric vehicle technology working at Nikola, and we brought over about 250 of them. And another interesting fact is that many companies, especially many automakers, are saying that they're interested in our facilities and investments in Arizona. The reason is because when it comes to making cars, there are all those accompanying parts, right? They don't want to make those parts overseas anymore. Now they want to manufacture them in the US. And since our facilities have expanded significantly, there are a lot of OEMs asking, would you like to share these facilities with us? So if you look here, this is a map of Arizona. And right here is the NGA1 factory. And the Nikola factory that we're trying to acquire this. Time is located here. So, in terms of distance, it's about 40 kilometers away. It's about a 27-minute drive. So basically, they built an additional production facility near their existing one. But now they're saying, how about we make cars together here? They're saying that there were other companies who made such proposals. And for your reference, they also mentioned that internally, they're currently discussing it. All right, let's move on. So, if we look at the key financial results, we can see that vehicle deliveries are steadily increasing. So, even though they said that by 2025, while it might not be deliveries, they plan to produce up to 20,000 units, the stock price still hasn't really surged. Next, their revenue is also increasing. That's a good sign. But what is their gross margin? It's minus 97%. If the margin were 100%, it means the more they sell, the more money they lose. And then their adjusted EBITDA is still showing significant losses. So even though vehicle production is going well right now and Gravity has launched successfully, but the question is, when are they actually going to reach profitability? When will they turn a profit? So this is what they're talking about during the conference call. When do you think you will break even? When do you expect to hit the break-even point? And ultimately, when will you start making a profit? That's what they're saying. So when asked about this, they respond by saying that the recently launched Graffiti, which we just released, will lay the foundation for mass production and will contribute to profitability. And also, once the mid-size model that we're waiting for comes out, our fixed costs will decrease and we'll be able to ease those fixed costs. In the end, they say, that's how we'll reach break-even and eventually become profitable. So, what exactly is this Lucid mid-size model they're talking about here? When is it coming out? It won't be released until 2026 or 2027, and unlike the Lucid Air or the Gravity, which are more on the luxury side, this one will be different. For example, you could compare it to something like the Tesla Model 3. So, the idea is that the mid-size model will allow more customers to be able to buy a Lucid vehicle. If they can successfully launch this mid-size model into the market, then maybe, how should I put it, profitability, or maybe they could start turning a profit, or at least move toward profitability. That's what they're saying now. So, the mid-size model is really the key point here. Even though the Gravity has been released, okay, you get what I mean, right? If you don't understand, please leave a comment. Now, moving on, there was also some discussion about issues with the Gravity. People who have actually driven the Gravity are saying, the quality of the Gravity isn't that great. That's what they've been saying. Things like the fit, the finish, and then there are technology issues, probably with the software. One of the things that came up was the head-up display. The company that was supposed to supply the head-up display said they weren't able to ramp up and mass produce as much as the customer wanted. So, as a result, what Lucid said was that the head-up display, which was originally supposed to be standard, has now just been made an option. So, there will be vehicles with a head-up display and vehicles without it. And they're saying that this has been left as an option for customers to choose. And as for the software update, they say that issue has already been resolved. So, regarding the graffiti-related issues and other quality-related issues, we can summarize that they said in the conference call that these have already been resolved. Now, with that in mind, it looks like the mid-size model will be released later, in 2026, and it might even be pushed into 2027. This is regarding production, so I think it would be good for you to keep that in mind. Now next, they talk about vertical integration here. Currently, as you all probably know, they're handling design, development, and production at LF1 in the US. But where will they be doing all this in the future? So, at LF2, for now, they assemble the parts made in LF1 after they're shipped over. They do the assembly there, but now they're saying they won't be doing that anymore. They've announced that LF2 will be turned into a complete rebuilt factory, and they started this in the first quarter of 2024. So if you look here, they're saying that instead of just assembling, they're going to do manufacturing and full production at this facility. I think it would be good for you to keep this in mind as well. Now, if we look at the outlook for 2025, they've announced that they plan to produce 20,000 units. Now, when did they say they would have liquidity? They said it would be in the second half of 2026. So, if we assume they can hold out until the second half of 2026, there's this mid-size model they've mentioned. The key question is, how are they going to produce this mid-size model? Because in 2026 and 2027, they need capital to produce this mid-size model, and by producing it, they could, how should I put it, actually generate net income in the true sense. But the problem is, they're currently lacking the funds needed to get to that point. I think this is a really important issue. Oh, right now, Nicola, toy, wildlife, oh, I'm sorry. The reason Lucid's stock price can't go up is ultimately because people are wondering when this mid-size model will come out, and where the money to make it will come from. Personally, I think it's this kind of doubt that's keeping the stock price from rising. Alright, let's move on. And here they start asking questions about China during the conference call. Is your supply chain okay? They say that. They're talking about rare earth elements used in cars. Next, they're talking about tariffs. And here they mention that the amount of rare earth elements used in the LUCID gravity is actually quite small. So, only a very small amount of dysprosium and terbium is used. And even if China were to restrict these, we could use other rare earth elements that wouldn't affect our car's performance at all. So basically, they're saying not to worry about issues related to rare earth elements. Next, when asked what they would do if the supply chain from China were to be disrupted, they said that they are constantly monitoring this situation. For example, what do they say here? So right now we're getting batteries produced by Panasonic in Japan, but in the future we won't be importing them from Japan to the US anymore. We have a Panasonic factory in Kansas, and they're saying that from now on we'll be supplied with 2,170 batteries made there. They're also mentioning that they're paying attention to tariff-related issues like this. Next, not just this, but also graphite. Yes, graphite. They're saying that even for graphite, the raw material is now being sourced within the US. They're telling us that they've secured this supply now. So please note that this is how they responded to questions from investors and analysts about this matter. Alright, now, if we take another look at this, in the first quarter of 2025, the amount of money they burned was $589 million. It seems like they currently have about $3.6 billion on hand. In that case, what they officially said is, we have enough cash to last until the second half of 2026. But they aren't saying anything about 2027. So then, where do you think they'll get the funds from? They might get support from the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, or they could raise cash from another credit facility. So, because of these concerns, I personally think that Lucid's stock price won't be able to go up easily. So, even though they finally released the gravity, which we've all been waiting for, and it looks amazing, there's still concern about their future outlook. That's why Lucid's stock price is moving the way it is right now. In my personal opinion, I don't think we'll see the stock price trending upward anytime soon. Alright, I think that's about all I need to cover regarding Lucid for now. If you have any questions or if anyone wants to add more information, please leave a comment below. That's it for today's video. I'll wrap it up here and come back with another video next time. Thank you.